Greetings, chess endgame fans. The position we're going to look at is a very instructive knight against knight ending from the game between James Mason and Arturo Reggio, played at a tournament in Monte Carlo in 1903. Now this was a monster 14-player double-round event, won by Sigbert Tarrasch. It was not a very successful tournament for either Mason or Reggio though, as they both finished way down the field. But they did produce this extremely interesting knight endgame. And the latter stages of this endgame feature in Yuri Averbach and Vitaly Chukova's excellent book on knight endings. But the authors, however, miss out what, to the Woldsman's mind, are the most interesting earlier moments in this game. Now to the players. James Mason has previously featured in these videos. He was one of the strongest players of the later 19th century, but this tournament took place towards the end of his career. Arturo Reggio was a multiple Italian champion and finished first in several international tournaments at the beginning of the 20th century. As always, the position is chosen for its instructional value, recognising that even the strongest players make errors in endings that we can all learn from. So turning to the position, White Mason is to move, and he's a pawn up. Black threatens counterplay, however, with the move King f4, followed by King f3, going after White's pawn on f2. So the question is whether White should play King c6, followed by Knight c4 and Knight b2, with the idea of queening the b-pawn, or alternatively, White could play the move King c4, harassing the black knight, or the move King e5 to shoulder barge the black king and to deny the enemy access to the f4 square. Now, if you'd like to think about this problem, pause the video here. What should White play? Okay, well, welcome back if you had a go at this ending. Well, let's start by considering the move King c6. Now, the problem with this move is that it's just too slow. Black gets on with his counterplay with King f4. White, in turn, carries out his plan with Knight c4. Black king goes to f3, and now the problem is that if White completes his plan, Knight b2 actually loses here. Black simply takes the knight, knight takes knight, and after b6, Black has the move Knight c4, threatening Knight takes pawn, and if b7, then Black has the fork Knight a5 check. And Black will capture the b-pawn, and White's king will be too far away to stop the black g-pawn from queening after Black plays king takes f2. So King c6 is no good. Congratulations though if you chose the move King c4. And this is in fact the only winning move in this position. Now let's see what happens if Black tries the same idea as before, going for counterplay with King f4. Well, here White's got the check, Knight d5 check. And after King f3, he can hit the knight with King b4. And this presents Black with a problem. If Black captures the pawn, King takes f2, White takes the knight, and after g3, White can drop the knight back with Knight f4. Black king has to attack the knight with King f3, and now White just goes b6. And notice that if Black takes the knight, King takes f4, after b7, White is going to queen the pawn with a check, and that will be sufficient to win the game. Okay. Let's go back to the position after King b4. Is there anything else Black can do other than capturing the pawn King takes f2? Well, the only other move in the position is to go knight b2, so let's try that. White goes b6. Black gives a check, knight d3 check. So white has to be a little bit careful here, but the move king b5 is very strong. And now if black captures the pawn, well, b7 is just way too fast, so he can't really consider that. He has to do something to stop the pawn, so the knight has to drop back to e5. White goes b7. Black plays knight d7 to guard the queening square. And now white has a nice little interrupting move. We can go knight to f6. The knight can't be captured because the pawn will queen. So the knight has to go to the very passive square, knight b8. And white can meet that with king b6. And now if black plays king takes f2, then white has knight takes g4 check. And that's going to be followed by the move knight e5. For example, king g3, knight e5, and that will win easily. King f4, king a7. White has got enough time to capture the knight and to queen the pawn, and there's no square that the knight can retreat to, so that is a straightforward win. Okay. So after king b6, black can't take the pawn. Is there anything else black can do? Well, he can try pushing the pawn. What happens after g3? White recaptures. Black captures the pawn, but now white's got knight e4 check. Problem is that the black king is just too far away from the b pawn. And after king f4, the white knight goes to c5, guarding the squares a6 and d7. And so next move, white is going to play king a7 or king c7. He'll capture the knight and queen the pawn. So the move king b6 is very strong. Black can't play king takes pawn, and black can't play g3 either. So the only other thing black can do is just to try and wait things out. He could try the move king f4. But unfortunately, this also fails to save the game, although there's a rather nice finesse in this position that I'll point out. White goes king c7, and the only move black has is to play knight a6 check. And now where should the white king go? Should it go to c8 or should it go to d8? Well, it turns out that king d8 is much the strongest move. And the reason is a Zugzwang idea. Let's just see what happens if white goes king c8 here. Black goes after the f-pawn with king f3. And now a mistake would be to play knight d7, because after king takes f2, knight c5, black has got time for g3. And after knight takes knight, g2, the black pawn is in time to save the game, and we'll be left with the ending of queen and knight versus queen, which is a draw. So instead, after the knight check, it's much stronger for white to play the move king d8 instead. And after king f3, white plays king c8. And now black is in Zugzwang. He has to go back, because we've already seen that if black plays king takes f2, then knight takes g4 check wins. And likewise, if g3, white plays f takes g3, and after king takes g3, white has knight e4 check. So black has to go back, king f4, and this loses time. Now white can play the move knight d7. Black goes king f3, white goes knight c5, black captures the pawn and white captures the knight. And compared to the last variation we saw, black is no longer in time. The king d8, king c8 manoeuvre has actually gained white a tempo here. So, recapping, the move king c4 wins the game. But Mason didn't choose king c4. Instead, from the start position, he chose the move king e5. Now this move certainly seems to put black on the horns of a dilemma. If he gives way with the king, then king f4 is going to win the g-pawn. So for example, king h4, king f4. And if black goes knight b6, then white has the strong reply, knight d5, ejecting the knight. Now in the game, Reggio played the move knight c5 with the idea of b6 should be a terrible blunder, knight d7 check. Now we'll see how Mason coped with this in a moment, but first of all we'll see that black in fact had a surprising resource in this position. The best move is the move knight c3. Now the knight moves away from the queening square on b8, but attacks the b-pawn and remains on the circuit c3, a4, c5 and d7. The circuits are very important principles in knight endings. Well, the pawn's attacked, so white has got no choice, he has to play b6. The black knight attacks the pawn again, knight a4. Again, leaving white with no choice, he has to push on with b7. And now the black knight comes to c5, attacking the pawn one final time. And here, if white plays the move b8 equals queen, then simply knight d7 check wins the queen, drawing the game. And unfortunately for white, he can't be clever and go for the under promotion, b8 equals knight, because if he does that, well, black has another fork. He can play knight d3 check, and he wins the f-pawn. So the move knight c3 forces the draw very quickly. But unfortunately, Reggio missed this elegant solution, and he replied to king e5 with the move knight to c5. Let's follow the game continuation for a bit from here. Mason went knight g2, denying the black king access to f4 and h4. Reggio gave a check, knight d7 check. White attacked the knight, king d6, and the knight settled down in front of the b-pawn with knight b6. And here Mason put his king on a square where he must have thought it was safe from a knight check. He played the move king e6. But this move, however, is a serious mistake. And instead, white should have gone for knight e3. And after knight a4, the knight comes to a commanding central square, knight d5. And if black goes king f5, then white has the trick knight c3. Now the knight can't be taken because otherwise the b-pawn will push forward in queen. So the black knight has to drop back to b6. The white king attacks it, king c5. And so the knight checks the king on d7. The white king attacks the knight, king c6. And so black gives another check on e5. White king comes to the centre, king d5, and the black knight has to guard the advance of the pawn by dropping back to d7. Now white can win with the move knight a4, denying the knight access to the b6 square. And so black's only hope is to fall back on his counterplay with the move king f4. The white king attacks the knight, which is forced to go to the passive square b8. White knight goes to c5, and now black plays king f3. So the only thing that the white has to be wary of here is a final little trick. If he's too hasty and he plays the move king c7, well, black can play king f2, king takes pawn, and the g-pawn will be in time to save the game. But instead, after the simple move knight d3, white has a completely won position. And next move he's going to play king c7, round up the knight, and queen the b-pawn. So knight e3 would have won the game for Mason here, but instead he played the move king e6. Black's knight went to a4, which is a nice square for the knight, guarding the square b6. And all of a sudden white has got serious problems. What is he to do? If he tries to move knight e3 here, well, black can just play king f4 with the idea of playing king f3, and he has sufficient counterplay to gain a draw. So that's no good. Now if white goes king d5, well, black will play knight c3 check. And after king c4, there's a nice knight sacrifice that draws the game. We can play knight takes pawn. And after king takes pawn, well, black has to watch out. It would be a mistake here to play the move g3, because white has the clever move f3, and that creates a force field. The squares h4, g4, f4 and e4 are all covered, and so it's going to be very difficult for black's king to round up that f-pawn, because the white king can just complete the force field by moving to c4. Force fields are very important in knight endings, so you always want to watch out for force fields, whether you're attacking or defending. But instead of g3 though, black has the move king f5. And after king c4, there is no force field. Black can play king e4. And the only way to meet the threat of king f3 is to play knight e1, trying to create another force field. The squares d3, e3 and f3 are now all covered. But black has to move g3, breaking the force field. And after f3 check, black plays king e3, and he will soon force a win of the f-pawn by playing g2, and that will eliminate all of the material and lead to a draw. So that try is no good for white either. Can't play knight e3, can't play king d5. Well, the only option left is the one that Mason tried, and that is to play king e5. But the problem with this move is it gave Reggio a second chance to save himself, because he can again play the idea knight c3. And it's the exact same sequence as we saw previously. White has to go b6. Black attacks the pawn with knight a4. Pawn goes to b7, and now black plays knight c5. And as we saw before, regardless of whether white queens the pawn or under-promotes to a knight, either knight d7 check or knight d3 check will save black. However, once again, Reggio chose the inferior move knight c5. And the game continued from here, knight e3, knight d7 check, king d6, knight b6. We've seen quite a similar sequence in the game previously. White went knight d5, nice central square for the knight. Black's knight went to a4. And after king e5, knight c5, we finally reached the starting position given by Averbach and Chekhova in their book Knight Endings. So let's follow the commentary of these famous grandmasters from this point. Mason played the move knight f6 here, and that was a clever move. And Averbach and Chekhova point out that if black had replied with the fork knight d3 check, then white has king d4, and after knight takes pawn, white can simplify into a one king and pawn ending by playing the move knight e4 check, a fork of his own. Black must take, knight takes knight, king takes knight. Black must try and force his g-pawn home with king h4. White pushes, black pushes, and now Averbach and Chekhova point out a very nice checkmate. White plays king f3, which is a lovely strong move. Black must play king h3, after b7, g2, b8 equals queen, g1 equals queen. Well, white now has the move queen h8, which is checkmate. So that's very nice. So after the move knight f6, it's not possible to play knight d3 check, and so Reggio played king h4 instead. Okay, white pushed, b6, black king came to h3, the white king came to f5, attacking the g-pawn, and Reggio went after the f-pawn with king g2. Here, knight takes g4, knight takes pawn is also winning, but there's nothing wrong with the move that Mason preferred. He played knight e4, and that forced the knight to go to d7. It attacks the pawn, so the pawn goes to b7. Black played king f3. White attacked the knight again with knight f6, another neat tactical move. That knight can't be taken because the pawn will then queen, so the knight has to go to the passive square b8. And now Mason did take the g-pawn, knight takes g4. And so white has eliminated black's potential counterplay. Black doesn't have a g-pawn anymore. And now white can let the f-pawn go because the enemy king is just too far away from the passed b-pawn to stop it from promoting. Black played knight a6. White played a very accurate move, knight f6, giving up the f-pawn. Black had to take it, king takes pawn. And now white went king e5. Black king tried to oppose with king e3. White king carried on its march to the queenside with king d5. Black played king d3. White went knight d7, preventing the knight from going to b8. Black played king c3. And now the last move of the game was king c6. And here Reggio resigned because he cannot prevent king b6, and the b-pawn will queen after the knight moves away or is captured. So a very instructive example of knight and two pawns versus knight and pawn. I hope you'll agree. Thank you for watching.